No. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for your participation. And I'm presenting you in this moment briefly the meetMED week. In this afternoon, there will be the first session about Sustainable Energy Investment Forum. And the goal of this session is to facilitate the discussion among the stakeholders to identify the barriers and support the necessary changes in the national legal framework, and to exchange of good practices in developing sustainable energy investment project and programs. In the first session, at the beginning is a general overview, and after we have a technical session. The next sorry. Tomorrow, the whole day is dedicated on concerted action on buildings, and the building sector is responsible from 20% up to 35% of the total energy consumption of each country in this region. To reduce it, every country have been implemented some measure, but despite government institution and the regulatory and legal framework, all this measure is evolving slowly. For this reason, the concerted action is focused on to harmonize the energy efficiency legislation and policy on for buildings. In particular, in the morning, the session is a general overview and a keynote presentation with high-level speakers. And then afternoon, there will be a technical specific session on specific topics. The day after is all dedicated on appliances, and appliances are one of the highest consumer of in the southern eastern Mediterranean countries. And this concerted action aims to assist policymakers for the harmonization on energy efficiency legislation and standards in these countries. As for the previous concerted action on buildings, in the morning we will have a general presentation and a roundtable with high-level speakers, and in the afternoon and technical session. The last day we have in the morning one technical session on monitoring of energy efficiency. And this session is focused on harmonization of energy efficiency indicators and on exchange of good practices of data collection, of energy efficiency trends analysis, and national energy efficiency action plans development and implementation. As for the other concerted action, we have a general introduction and after and a specific session on technical items. In the afternoon, we will have the closing plenary. that will be an important wrapping up moment when rapporteurs of a previous session will provide a summary of their individual session and the takeaway messages that will be inserted in the meetMED letter of intent that will be presented in the next COP27 meetings. This letter of intent represent the meetMED position, common position for the decarbonization of the Mediterranean areas. This I finished and with some general tips for those in presence. From 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. there will be a welcome coffee outside the room, this room. And from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Lunch at the Excelsior second room. For those online, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Please avoid the background noises when you are when your microphone is not mute, and please put the camera in the right way. Thank you so much.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Alessandro Federici from Enea, from Italy, and I am the work package leader of the work package 2 about policies and measures. And so maybe this should not be, let's say, my session, given work package 2 is about policies and measures, about buildings, appliances, and their monitoring. But as I added also this morning, in the words of many of the speakers we had, the financing of the energy efficiency of action is one of the essential key enabling factors to facilitate actions and the acceleration we added we need to meet the long-term targets of the decarbonization. So it's a really pleasure for me to give the floor to both Maged and then online Eduardo for this very interesting session. We need to know what are the barriers and then what are the current available tools for the financing, and to share our experience just to then with the goal to accelerate the rate of renovation of buildings and of replacement of appliances for the decarbonization targets we had in the long term. Thank you very much. Please, Maged, the floor is yours. Please.
It's a pleasure being with you today. And I'm going to briefly, I know that we are a bit late, so I'm going to briefly introduce the work under meetMED under the access to finance pillar. And in fact, the purpose of this work package, as we call it under meetMED, is to facilitate dialogue and visibility of different financial instruments, financial tools, and other, I would say, instruments that would help the countries to upscale not only energy efficiency in building and appliances, but the sustainable energy in general. But we are focusing more on energy efficiency in building and appliances and equipments. And beside enhancing the visibility of existing funds and initiating dialogue similar to what we have through the meetMED week, we are going also to showcase what are the mechanisms for funding energy efficiency and appliances in different countries. And here we would look into not only the existing mechanism, but also what would be the innovative mechanisms that would work with the region. And then we will introduce some tools that would help the project holders to access finance within certain phases of the project. So we have 4 key intervention areas: the business models, finance, web tools to help the developers, the forums that we are convening today, and we'll elaborate more on that through Eduardo, my colleague here from Enea, and a special package on training. And this is dedicated to the banking sector. And we are focusing more on the local banks that would be enabled to work in the energy efficiency and appliances domain. We know that they have a lot of experience right now in many countries in the region in financing renewable energy projects, in financing energy efficiency in the industrial sector, and maybe commercial sector to a certain extent. But here for the building sector and for the appliances, we need to have more, I would say, engagement from the banks. So for the business models, we will have, in fact, two important reports, one on the financing capability guides, and the other is on innovative finance, climate finance available worldwide right now. And I assume this would give some sort of, I would say, a taxonomy of what is happening beside a list of where to access finance. And here we'd look into the business models and come up with 3 innovative business models. And we will rely on the projects that are within the meetMED project itself, as well as other projects that are recommended by our beneficiary countries. And we'll have 4 capacity development events in 4 countries dedicated to how to create a viable business model. What are the options that would meet the need of this specific country, and also to get a better knowledge on the region. And of course, we should have interaction with IFIs and local banks. So we would have a well-elaborated discussion with those actors from the banking sector and IFIs. Having said that, we move now to the, I would say, enhancing the implementation capacities of the different actors. And this will be done through a set of web tools for project owners especially. And we will start, of course, by mapping what is existing as tools online and so on. And then we will couple this with the existing incentives, the carrots, and also the penalties that exist in case of non-compliance. And having these two together would enable us to design the platform. But before that, we will engage closely with national stakeholders and regional actors also to discuss the design of this web tool. Once we have the design, we will, in fact, have it tender. The conceptual design will be done, then we'll have a tender, and then we'll have it deployed and implementing, and then marketed to all actors. The second part is modules for banking. And in this part, we'll have we will develop 3 dedicated capacity development modules, the materials for the banking sector in 3 areas: the EE labels and MEPs, mandatory energy performance standards, the green buildings, and new and innovative financing schemes. Once we have that, we will test these training modules within 4 capacity development programs in the beneficiary countries. So this is the second part. And you can see how we are engaged within all the work package with all actors. And here come the part of the MED Sustainable Energy Investment Forum. And I will leave this to Eduardo to explain more. We will have a nice discussion, and also to Roberta to elaborate how we are going to build this Sustainable Energy Investment Forum, because we think this is an important tool that would help the countries to have some sort of an observatory inside the country of what is being financed, how it is financed, and also to create synergies among different stakeholders, among other things that would be elaborated well by Eduardo and Roberta. And by this, I conclude my presentation. I'll meet you later in the panel discussion, but now I'll give the floor to my colleague Eduardo, who is online. He's from INEA, and I hope please bring him on board. Okay, Eduardo, the floor is yours.
Hello, Maged. Thank you very much. I have some slides, but I cannot share them. So, if it's not a problem, I will go forward. Without sharing them. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be virtually here with you and to introduce the work of the MED Sustainable Energy Investment Forum. I will shortly introduce you to the work of the MED Forum, and after give the floor to Roberta Boniotti. So the MED Forum, the main aim is to boost investment and financing for energy efficiency at national level. What this means is to activate private sector investment, enhance access to finance for energy efficiency projects, and help replicate and scale up best practice and innovative approaches. As was said before from Maged, first of all, this will be done through mapping and engaging all relevant and public and private stakeholders in different countries. Map the relevant financial tools, measures, initiatives in the different each different countries. Identify the project that could be funded thanks to the project technical assistant, and with the final aim to establish a permanent and high-level national forum of discussion and exchange of information, experience, and good practice in the different countries. So how is done this? This will be done, the core of the activities of the meetSEI forum are the national roundtable that are organized both within the meetMED weeks and during national events that we have in different countries. So the aim of this national roundtable will be, first of all, to facilitate the dialogue between banks, financial partners, public authorities, and all different stakeholders that are involved in delivering investment in sustainable energy, is to improve the visibility of already existing funds, to present good practices and innovative funding mechanisms, both for buildings and for appliance, and to identify the current barriers, single out the enabling conditions, and the necessary amendments that it has to be done in the legal framework to enable a conducive business environment. The national events that would be held within the meetMED weeks are going to be 3, included this one, and 5 national events will be done outside the meetMED weeks. What needs to be done so for all this to start? So first of all, we need your participation in order to start engage a different stakeholder in the targeted countries. We will have to select national contact points and a network of experts within each country. After that, we will need some data and information. We will start to gather them through communication and networking activities with the stakeholders. So to discuss with them, together with them, their expectation and the proposed inputs, their inputs for the national roundtable, to identify which are the most important topics for them, which are the most important issues that need to be discussed first. After, there will be also, this will be done also through interviews with key stakeholders in order to go more in depth in this aspect. So to be sure that during the roundtable, important issues and matters are really discussed, and that have also a practical aspect and not just a theoretical one. And last but not least is the selection of the host countries among Algeria, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, Morocco, Palestine, and Tunisia, where to hold these roundtables. So this is my, I use this occasion to announce that now the candidatures are open. So to please to contact us if you are interested to participate in this in the roundtable, and if you think you could want to be part as national contact point or part of the network of the stakeholders. Just a concluding note, the MED Sustainable Energy Investment Forum takes inspiration from the European experience, where there is already a Sustainable Energy Investment Forums, and there are already examples of national roundtable ongoing on financing energy efficiency, and there is an important group that is the Energy Efficiency Financial Institution that discussed in close collaboration with the SEI Forum all these important issues. With this, I will leave the floor to Roberta Bognotti, MEDNER General Secretariat, that will discuss with the high-level speaker all these European initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edoardo and Maged before. So my name is Roberta Bognotti, and I'm the Secretary General of MEDNER that you know well. I can imagine after this morning and during the afternoon, we are coordinated together with the CRE of the meetMED project. And I'm here today, but I'm also EU advisor for European policies at Enea Italy. So I work in Brussels. I'm based in Brussels. So I'm particularly pleased to introduce the keynote presentations for for this session today about financing. We've heard this morning that energy efficiency first is a crucial, is a main important principle to facilitate the energy transition. We've heard that investments are needed and green finances is becoming really important, and financing is becoming green. So we need to accelerate, we need to act now, we need to have fundings. What are the key messages that we can give? Based on the European experience, I would like to introduce three important and successful experiences regarding the SEI forums in Europe, that are the Sustainable Energy Investment Forums. And we'll have for this Annette Jan, that head of sector from the CINEA, it's an executive agency of the European Commission. Peja Sweatman, that's rapporteur to the European Commission and to the UNEP about the EFIG, the Energy Efficiency Financial Institution Group, and Christina Casella, program manager at DG Neighboring, about the Climate First City program. So the European Commission and the rapporteur to the European Commission to describe the experience in Europe, the successful experience about financing energy efficiency. Just two key messages: multi-level stakeholders dialogue is necessary, is important, is crucial, and multi-level governance. But we'll hear more from them. And then, of course, these will be key messages also for the next roundtable. We have Annette.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Roberta. Thank you very much for the very kind introductory words. It's a very great pleasure and an honor for me to be here today and share our experience with the Sustainable Energy Investment Forum's initiative. Apologies that this is a virtual participation. Turbulent times are difficult to manage, but I'm glad that we can join you in this way. Now, I will try to share the screen to show my presentation. Having said this, it is indeed true. The platform doesn't seem to allow this, so I'll proceed without the presentation, and I hope that with the words I can convey to you the messages that we wanted to share with you today. So our work, Roberta shortly mentioned, we are working for the CINEA Executive Agency, which is a branch of the European Commission. Our core work is to offer financial funding, financial support for pioneers to break market barriers for energy efficiency. So in European acronyms, you would be looking at programs which are called Horizon Europe, or programs which are called Life Energy, Clean Energy Transition Program. But that's basically the hosting umbrella. What is inside is what is important. So we work intensively on solutions to scale up investment flows into cleaner energy, notably energy efficiency. And today, compared to about, I would say 7 years ago when we started this journey, today about 1/3 of our energy efficiency funding is actually devoted to this line of work. So we are basically the energy efficiency policy support program, if you wish, in direct support to many of the political initiatives, but also to the regulatory environment that you have heard already about this morning. I only mention, of course, our target setting. I mentioned the Renovation Wave initiative, but of course, on all of the topics that you will debate over the next days, notably the Building Directive or the Energy Efficiency Directive with its energy efficiency first principle enshrined. Here, the EU, as we share, has very clear targets to deliver as many as of your administrations. At the same time, we are cruelly aware that the current level of investment into sustainable energy are not enough to meet these goals. So will require a substantial use of private finance. And now we do know that money normally flows where there are the least barriers, but actually not quite without really very good facilitation. Now, our approach is that we are working on 3 pathways, on 3 avenues, if you want. Firstly, we're working on what we call de-risking. Here we are helping financiers and investors to simply better understand energy efficiency investment so that they consider this as part of their standard business. Our second avenue of work that we are highly engaged in is to make a much better use of public funding. So to actually reserve our grants for activities which will lever private finance in order to make the best use of this and reserve the grants for those areas which were much more vulnerable. The third avenue is that we are helping the project developers with technical assistance and aggregation. Here we're trying to solve the barrier that energy efficiency investment, as you know this very well, you're all experts to this and observers to this. Energy efficiency is fragmented and often in many segments, notably, for example, in the building segment, which you will debate very intensively over the next days, is in fragmented small slices and needs to be aggregated, needs to be bundled in order to make them attractive for the finance industry. So all of this work is not exactly the part of that I was invited to share with you today. So we've got a rich wealth of about 100 million worth of projects which are delivering this work on an annual basis. And we have about 100 projects, of which some of the ambassadors are actually with you over the next days. But all of this work does not yet succeed on its own. What we realized with this journey is that it also needs a fundamentally different way of how the public sector and how private actors work together on the one side. At the same time, also within markets, within the different value chain steps of markets, we also need the actors to work and basically speak to each other in a different way. And this is where our European, if you want, Sustainable Energy Forums initiative came in. So we created this initiative in around 2017, which was very much the momentum of the EFIC, so the Energy Efficiency Financial Institution Group's work, groundbreaking, if I may already anticipate what Peter will tell you in a moment about. That was actually the momentum when the Sustainable Energy Forums initiative was founded, and which actually gained momentum also alongside the work that the EFIC group has importantly put forward. So it's a European Commission initiative, but very important and very close collaboration with national administrations. And very quickly, we really found a blueprint of the most urgent themes, which were very common between the different administrations. If I had my slides, you would be seeing actually quite a nice selection of the themes which are debated at these sustainable energy investment fora. But of course, they're turning much around how to mobilize the financial sector, how to get solutions into renovation of public buildings, how to solve the very challenging solutions for renovating our homes, or for example, on industry, how to turn energy audits into real investments. So basically the main themes, the main threats around the sustainable energy investment fora debated within the European sphere is really around renovation of buildings and getting the industry prepared for the clean energy transition. Now, obviously, the energy sector is much vaster, but these were the two areas on which we found that the administrations had urgent, pressing, but also concrete ideas of how to move forward. Now, what is actually a sustainable energy investment forum? So basically, it's a meeting place. It's a meeting place, but not only. It is first of all a meeting place which is focused on national needs. We did also start with European and regional conferences, and that moved as the agenda moved along, and also as knowledge was gaining ground, we actually moved into the detail. We moved into the national administrations, and which means a roundtable is really focused on national needs, but of course enriched with an agenda of examples of initiative across border of different countries in different contexts, but facing similar challenges in order to not lose the opportunity of actually getting inspired by examples which have already worked in another country. It's closed workshops. Key market stakeholders are actually handpicked and invited upon invitation. And the forum really focuses on dialogue on solutions, and which also means that there is actually a lot of time for brainstorming and discussion, and the topics and questions are shared, are elaborated in detail beforehand and are shared with the participants in advance so that the discussions can really carry very concrete flavor, and that at the end of the process, there is a real action plan which is elaborated. Now, the second feature of these roundtables, and I think that is probably the most important, the second feature is actually that a roundtable is actually people. Now that sounds very, very evident, but here in these roundtables, what makes part of the success, we believe, is that indeed the stakeholders to be invited are selected, are invited personally based on their specific expertise, and that there's really a hard effort put into having all of the sectors which are relevant. Of course, the finance sector, be it the public and the private part, retail banks, national promotional banks, investment funds. We need the public sectors, all of the relevant ministries, of course, at the regional and local level included. And notably, we've observed that really the energy agencies, national energy agencies, but also their peers at regional level are really driving the process as well. Obviously, market actors in all of their breadth needed for the thematic detail, be it energy services companies, the construction sector, industry federations, utilities, and of course, the civil society, so in form of normally part of consumer organizations sharing their views and bringing this into the debate. The fora itself, they are usually characterized by highly participative tools. So as I said, a lot of brainstorming discussion, a very small but absolutely non-important feature is that we've chosen to run the fora under what we call the Chatham House rule, which means that statements are recorded, statements can be taken into records and notes and minutes and be brought forward, but they're not attributed to those who made them, and which makes it really possible to have very, very free discussions, which are really driven by the actual subject. Now, I would say missing the slides. I'll just give you one example from one country in order not to overwhelm with words. I'd like to highlight one example just to show you how a journey can look like. I was asked to share examples and where countries have actually taken the opportunity of the Sustainable Energy Investment Forum and have actually taken it forward to the benefit of their policy, which is of course enshrined in the European policy. So I'll pick the example of Italy. Here, really, I think Italy is what we would call, with all of the efforts of all of the administrations, really in honor. But I do believe that Italy is really very much of an exemplary role of how the administrations use the opportunity of an SEI forum in short. Here, we've actually arranged already as one of the first pioneers in 2017, 2 public events and 2 roundtables. The success ingredients was that the roundtable was very much hosted and advocated by the relevant ministry, so the Ministry for Economic Development, but also by the national agency INEA, and that made the big difference, the Italian Banking Federation. So here, it was really the strong participation of the banking sector directly in the fora, which, for example, in Italy, boosted really the uptake of the energy efficiency mortgage initiative. Some of you may have heard this. So basically, a green mortgage initiative, which is hosted at the European level, and in which today about 70 banks and financial institutions are actually have actually joined. Having said this, it was really in Italy, thanks to the SEI forum, where there was a particularly high participation rate of Italian banks, and which basically was very much inspired and debated in this forum. Now, moving on, today, once that we have basically given our convening support to the Italian administrations for hosting these roundtables, it was actually the Italian Banking Association who picked up the initiative and who founded an institutional working group in their own merit, together with all of the players, in order to notably accelerate the renovation rate in Italy. And since last year, actually, the dialogue platform has actually moved into a permanent platform, and which of course is still very busy and working basically down the political and the political agenda, which has been supported by all of the members of this roundtable, and which is really a very, very exemplary example. Now I come to my concluding remarks. What are our feedbacks from about 40 events that we held in 16 countries over the last 3 to 4 years? Now, I think there has been a word, a formulation which was offered earlier in the introduction, that a forum of this kind can become kind of an observatory. And yes, it can be seen in such a way, in a way that there is a knowledge gathering and a knowledge hub, which is basically created, and which is certainly a very unique model of gathering knowledge, sharing knowledge, and sharing experiences. What we believe in is that one of the key feedback is that really the model of these SEI forum roundtables did really meet a real demand. If I take the loop back to the start, mobilizing finance for clean energy investment does need a fundamentally different dialogue, but really a dialogue at the working level. We all know that in the end of the day, changing regulation, fine-tuning funding programs to actually create the desired effects does need a level of detailed knowledge which is needed in these fora. And this is why the dialogue needs to take place between practitioners, but of course framed with a vision and strategic view, which really goes into the future proof. The SEI Forum created, therefore, in our experience, really a unique model with all the stakeholders at equal footing, which allows to have really concrete action plans. And what we did see happening is threefold. We did see happening revision of regulation. We did see happening that funding programs got adapted and that new financial instruments in the different administrations were offered to the private sector and together with the private sector. And probably the last point to mention, and the softest, but probably the most valuable asset of this SEI Forum movement, as I would rather call it, because it really does make a movement across all of the member states and a lot of keen interest of administrations to host such a roundtable, that it does really create long-standing cooperation platform for stakeholders and between stakeholders, in which closes really one of the biggest barriers. And therefore, we believe that it's really a future-proof model of such fora. And I can only encourage and invite and share the positive experience that we've had with the about 5,000 stakeholders of the last 3 to 4 years that we engaged through these fora, and to hopefully convey some of their very positive feedback and vibes into the future work that you will be undertaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Annette. I'm very sorry for the slides, but for sure we will distribute the slides that are really important also to show the experience not just of Italy, but of other 2 countries that are in particular Belgium and Spain, but there are of course 16 countries, as Annette mentioned, and so many stakeholders involved. The key message is dialogue, both at regional and at national level. Therefore, we are trying to replicate in the meetMED project the Mediterranean sustainable energy investment forums, both at regional level and at national level, as Eduardo explained before. It's important, of course, to put together the different stakeholders. And I want to stress once more that it's important to have ministries, to put together ministries, energy agencies that are the technical arm of ministries in many of our countries, and so technical experts and the association of banks, because public funds are not enough. We must have private funding with us. We must have a leverage effect on this. So let's go to the second presentation from Peter Swedman. I hope he's online. Peter, if you have a presentation, please share your slides from your computer, or otherwise we'll discuss. about the Energy Efficiency Financial Institution Group.
Thank you very much, Roberta. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for virtually hosting me here in Cairo, for this most excellent opportunity to share some of the work of the Energy Efficiency Financial Institutions Group. Indeed, I will be sharing my slides. Let me just try while I speak to do exactly that. 1 second. Let me see. So, share screen, screen 2, share. Just if anybody could let me know if you can see that
okay,
screen.
Thank you, Peter.
You can see it. Okay,
Yeah.
super. Very good. All right. So as Annette mentioned, the Energy Efficiency Group, Energy Efficiency Institutions Group, Energy Efficiency Financial Institutions Group, which I'm the rapporteur for, has in fact been working on the questions that relate to why we don't see greater amounts of investment capital and finance flowing into energy efficiency since it was formed by the Commission and the United Nations Environment Programme's Financial Initiative in 2013. In 2015, we reported on the first 2 years of activity in a detailed report. And in 2021, at the COP26 in this December in Glasgow, we launched a report which essentially provides an update as to what happened in the intervening 5 years since the Energy Efficiency Financial Institutions Group first wrote about what had happened. So in this presentation, what I will do, it's just 10 slides of content, and previously in the chat and again afterwards, I will put the link to the formal report, which I think you will all find very interesting to review. In essence, when we look back across 5 years to see what had happened to energy efficiency investments, we noticed that largely speaking across Europe, they had remained fairly constant. We had successfully changed the way in which the public sector looked at energy performance contracts, which prior to our work had seen just the debt component of them without seeing the energy savings, because energy savings is a expectation of a saving against future operational costs, which we worked on changing so that now public authorities can make more confident energy performance contracts. We launched a database, the link to which I've also put into the chat, which catalogs currently 23,000 buildings, industry and SME projects across Europe in different countries. That database is called the De-risking Energy Efficiency Platform, DEEP. It is Europe's largest energy efficiency project database, and I'm certain for all of the activities that have been outlined for the meetMED conference and for the Mediterranean region, you will find these projects extremely eye-opening, because whilst the buildings categorization and the industrial categorization is very similar, and there is all kinds of projects and all kinds of detail there. Each one of the projects, of course, is a real project, and all of the work has been done together with the EFIG members, financial institutions, over the last 5 years. We also developed a set of standards for financial institutions' energy efficiency investment processes, and that sounds very similar to one of the things I heard our introductory speaker talk about for tools for financial institutions. Those remain available. Again, I'll send the link, and I think it's a very useful initial guide for thinking and framing energy efficiency investment projects within financial institutions. So, of course, there are still barriers. And one of the things that, of course, we know very well about energy efficiency investments is that because an energy efficient choice is often a slightly more expensive choice than an energy inefficient choice, when looked at from just purely the initial cost outlay, you need to understand something more about an energy efficiency choice. So a more efficient air conditioner, or a more efficient process in industry, or a more energy efficient building to build, can cost, not always the case, but can cost more than the inefficient equivalents. And therefore, we do need to understand about the performance of energy efficiency investments in order to make and justify those higher investment costs. We also have higher transaction costs in the pure energy efficiency domain. So what that means is often when you're just investing in energy savings, the transaction size is a lot smaller than, say, building infrastructure in the first place. And in that case, sometimes the amount of legal costs and advisory and other assessments can be a higher proportion of the amount invested, which makes energy efficiency transaction costs as a proportion of the total higher than, say, in renewable energy. Some energy efficiency projects, of course, have a lack of data, and therefore the risk characteristics are less well known. Also, each energy efficiency project has to perform in its own environment. So the performance characteristics for that environment individually may not be known. And some market segments have a harder time accessing finance, such as low-income households and small and medium enterprises, typically. We always say in EFIG that the limited availability of reliable information and the lack of real energy efficiency performance data is indeed a growing issue, and we hear that all the time from our members. Given the limited time, what I will restrict myself to do in this presentation, just this initial presentation, is really focus on some of the key recommendations that we made in December to the Commission in the context of the COP26. So really what we said is summarized in 2 slides, but we said that concerted policy action that leaves no doubt of the importance of energy security and efficiency, with things like binding targets at a national level, compliance with standards and so on, is absolutely critical to give the signal that energy efficiency should be placed first. We said that segment by segment energy efficiency programs. So that means programs that are dedicated to specific segments of our economy. So that could be the public building space, specifically say for hospitals, specifically say for schools, can be led by exemplar approaches to the public sector. A plan of work is needed across multiple years. So if you're a contractor into any of these sectors, say the steel sector, you need to know where the sector itself is going, to know what kinds of technologies and processes need to be upgraded. Thirdly, we need to evaluate energy efficiency investment levels at the member state and indeed together with the member state level activities to provide a faster feedback loop into the policy cycle. One of the things that we've seen now increasing is as our levels of energy and climate ambition rise, with the necessity to align with the Paris Agreement, and of course, as everybody has seen in recent days, with the need to reduce our dependence on our fossil gas, particularly, the policy cycle needs to be faster, and we need to be quicker at getting the information as to what works and what doesn't work back into the system. Number 4, we need to embed energy efficiency choices directly into all public procurement rules and into EC-funded projects, including the Energy Efficiency First principle. So the Energy Efficiency First principle, I'm happy to say, has an EFIG working group working on it as we speak, and will be producing a report to help financial institutions integrate into their own operations and processes the Energy Efficiency First principle. That will be ready by the end of this year. But it's guides like that where the operational details of energy efficiency first need to be plugged into procurement and all kinds of public-led funding instruments. Fifthly, we need to facilitate the development of low-carbon heat networks, and we need to modernize the existing ones. So I think in as my sort of introductory words really draw to a close, trying to limit myself to the 10 minutes that I was allotted, the final slide I'm going to share with you show a way in which energy efficiency can be enhanced. Well, the remainder of the key recommendations we made to the Commission, but one thing that we're all aware of is how the discussions around the EU taxonomy definitions have matured, and how the first round of those definitions was put into law through the silence procedure in December of last year, and how that provides a frame to deliver more significant energy savings through the public and private funds together. So we sort of clearly hope that across different industries and different subgroups and in buildings, we will optimize public funds by only using grants, you know, in the case where other instruments like loans and guarantees are not feasible. We'll make it easier to report on smaller energy efficiency investments in a streamlined manner, and of course, always aligned with the EU's taxonomy. We also believe that we need to see the development of some larger scale financial instruments, which can collaborate with distribution partners. So here the distinction is really, it's not that, so we've never said as a group that we lack the money or the capital markets can't provide energy efficiency. There's really a lot of liquidity available. However, the bottleneck seems to be in distribution. So that is, if you have to distribute, so say in Europe, we have a challenge to do 35 million deep renovations in the next 8 years to meet the call of the EU renovation wave. To do millions of transactions, you need distribution networks and retail related branch offices and organizations that can deliver to millions of corporates and buildings and customers in order to mobilize these amounts of money. So whatever instruments we design, they need to be able to go beyond the pilots and the regional programs, which until this point in time we have seen really dominate. We also need to improve annual reporting on energy efficiency investments. My colleagues and I, who are also co-leading a working group on data this year, can only echo the difficulty which we have encountered digging through the reports that are provided by financial institutions on their sustainable activities, and how hard within that it is to see energy efficiency sometimes. The same is true to some degree for how member states report sector by sector across the EU, particularly for existing buildings and in existing industries, for example. And then finally, we make a call for the systematic reporting to central databases. And here, central databases could include energy performance certificate databases, which of course are extremely useful to financial institutions when they are available, and but they're just not available in all of the countries. And of course, we highlight DEEP, which is the database that I mentioned earlier, which could be made mandatory for any. So the inclusion of projects that receive public funding clearly should be mandatory, so that we can see the results of those public funds. So I think I'll stop here. There are more slides that I could go through, but I think in the interest of time and noting our delay, I will probably withhold the other remarks for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your really fruitful insights and for the experience of the Energy Efficiency Financial Institution Group that's running, that has been running since 2013 now. There are more than 300 actors that are members of the platform, and it is now a permanent platform, very important, and will of course look at the general recommendations that can be some of them even applied in our case for the Mediterranean region. And it's very important also to consider the de-risking energy efficiency platform with the projects, because of course there's a lack of reliable information also for financial institutions, and the real energy efficiency performance is important, of course, to start cooperating with the banks and financial institutions. There are also there's also the underwriting tool that's important to assist banks, financial institution in supporting investments in energy efficiency. There are a lot of takeaways for us from your experience. Now let's go to the third speaker, Christina Casella. She's program manager at DG Neighboring. And so we are now looking at the need for multi-level governance, because of course we are talking about national stakeholders, but it's very important to enhance the local authorities and to work with them to have really an improvement in financing and in considering also the sustainable energy and climate action plans of the different countries. Christina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can all hear me well.
Yes.
Okay, so I will continue. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me this afternoon to speak at this very interesting event. I was asked to say a few words about the new program that we have called Climate for Cities, which is really about finding innovative ways to unlock financing to drive the energy and the climate transition at the local level in the southern neighborhood. So before I dive into Climate for Cities per se, I'd like to say just a few words of introduction by saying a few words about the background of the program. So as EU, we have been supporting, of course, climate action in the Southern Neighborhood region now for many years, both through bilateral projects and also through regional projects. And when it comes to regional climate action projects, we have a very successful project called meetMED, which, as you see, has been in operation now since 2018 and is still in operation now. So this program covers Southern Neighborhood countries, and you can see the list here on the slides, and it broadly works on 3 work streams, work packages. So on the first work package, the program assists national administrations in the mainstreaming of climate change into national strategies and plans, into climate change coordination, climate governance, awareness raising, and so on. The second work package is more specifically targeted at the local level, and it assists cities and local authorities in the design, implementation, and monitoring of their sustainable energy access and climate action plans. Which I'm sure you have heard already about. I'm really sorry. So it also does provide, I'm really sorry, I have a little problem. I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Don't worry, if you prefer, we can wait some seconds otherwise.
I think I need a few minutes break. I will come back.
Okay, we can just briefly summarize until now what are the messages that I think it's very important to consider the dialogue, both at regional and in our case at European level, but particularly at national level. We must succeed with our meetMED project, and I'm looking at our colleagues here, in creating dialogue in the countries at the national level. We have to involve policymakers, technical experts, energy agencies, and financial institutions, of course, because we need also the support of the banks, and they need to be aware of what's happening. And the only way is dialogue. The only way is having a dialogue to identify the barriers and the opportunities, because in each country there are different barriers at the national level, different opportunities, different needs. So we need to replicate a little bit this model, taking into account our countries in the Mediterranean region, of course. Then it's very important to have databases, to have data, reliable data for banks, for financial institutions, and also the support of technical experts to understand that, and to have really dialogue that could become permanent with the permanent platforms. The third message would be the local authorities. I don't know if we can go back to Christina, otherwise I would suggest to go to the roundtable, and then we can come back to the presentation of the Climate for Cities. I think for now, we have enough food for thought for the next roundtable. So I'm giving the floor to Majed, who will be moderating the next roundtable, and then
I'm sorry. I'm really
Yeah.
sorry. Actually, I'm having a problem with my throat, but luckily my colleague Cyril is here today. He knows very well the project, so he will actually present on my behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. For sure, we will be circulating your slides, and thank you very much, Christina. And I will give the floor now to Majed for the roundtable.
Thank you very much for being patient with us. I know we are a bit delayed, and thanks for those who are still with us online. We really appreciate your time and effort, and this shows how difficult to have a mix between virtual and in-person events. Nevertheless, allow me to start immediately. I hope that the colleagues are still online. Maybe we call the colleagues now. We have with us here on the floor Mr. Abdelkader Bakouche from the Tunisian Agency for Energy Conservation, and he is replacing Dr. Fathi El-Hanchi, the General Director, and we would like to thank him for giving us his time and being with us today in Egypt. And online, I hope that we have some of the speakers with us. Mr. Asen Gashrov, is he with us online? Mr. Asen? I'd like to ask the speaker, the panelists to join us online. I know some of them has to leave. So we have with us Mr. Asen Gashrov, Senior Energy Efficiency Expert at EIB, the European Investment Bank. Hopefully also Mr. David Kanaradzi, and he is the CEO of GNA Finance. And unfortunately, we had Dr. Rasmi Hamza, who had to go to the board meeting, so he apologized. And Mr. Gabriel Delastour, CEMED Regional Head for Energy at EBRD, and Mr. Naguib Amin, the ClimaMed Senior Project Leader, and Mr. Jose Lopez, the EE expert at AFD. I hope they are online, and if they can open their cameras. I understand some of them will not be with us, but we will make it with those who are surviving with us. And thank you all for being patient till this late hour. We have exceeded almost 1 hour the plan. We see now Dr. Najib with us. Maybe we can start with you, Abdelkader, till the other colleagues join. And based on the Tunisian experience and giving a special focus to the building sector and alliances, which financing solutions and the instruments that you see more effective on the sectoral level when we are addressing the building and the alliances in particular? I know that we all know that you have a good experience in promoting Brusol program, for example, and other. But can you elaborate more in the financial instruments and their effectiveness, and which instrument should fit more the CEMED region, the project countries, please?
Assalamu alaikum. Permettez-moi, avant de commencer, de remercier Medener, Recri et le projet meetMED pour l'organisation de cet événement. Je vais partager avec vous l'expérience tunisienne concernant les outils de financement. Pour nous, l'outil le plus important permettant de développer la transition énergétique en Tunisie, surtout que l'ANME travaille depuis 1985, depuis 37 ans sur les programmes d'efficacité énergétique et d'énergie renouvelable. Et l'outil est le fonds de transition énergétique, Energy Transition Fund. Avec l'adoption du gouvernement tunisien en 2016 des objectifs de 3 objectifs de transition énergétique qu'on doit mettre en place d'ici 2030, Donc, la réduction de 30% de la demande énergétique par rapport à une référence de 2010. L'atteinte de 30% de production d'électricité à travers l'énergie renouvelable en partant de 3% à l'horizon 2030, qui se traduit par l'installation de 3800 MW d'énergie renouvelable en 2030, et surtout la réduction d'intensité carbone de 45% d'ici 2030, où 75% de cet objectif va venir du secteur énergétique, avec 25% qui va venir des énergies renouvelables et 50% qui va venir de l'efficacité énergétique. Donc, pour atteindre ces objectifs, le premier outil financier est le Fonds de transition énergétique qui était avant, jusqu'à 2014, le Fonds national pour la maîtrise de l'énergie. Depuis sa création jusqu'à maintenant, les ressources ont atteint à peu près 150 millions d'euros et on a dépensé sur ce fonds de transition énergétique à peu près 100 millions d'euros jusqu'à maintenant. Pour vous donner un indicateur concernant la valeur ajoutée du FTE, du Fonds de transition énergétique, un dinar dépensé par le Fonds de transition énergétique en Tunisie, il génère 5 dinars d'investissement dans le domaine de la maîtrise de l'énergie. C'est-à-dire, quand on donne un dinar à travers le FTE, ça génère 5 dinars d'investissement dans la maîtrise de l'énergie. Ça permet aussi d'éviter 3 dinars de subventions d'État des produits énergétiques, des produits pétroliers, et ça permet de réduire la facture énergétique de 7 dinars. Donc, ça, c'est le résultat d'une étude d'évaluation de l'impact du fonds de transition énergétique sur le marché de l'efficacité énergétique des énergies renouvelables en Tunisie. Ce fonds permet d'attribuer à partir de 2017 3 types d'interventions. Le premier, c'est à travers le chapitre 2 du FTE, ce sont des subventions directes accompagnées par des crédits spécifiques pour des actions spécifiques, surtout dans le domaine de l'efficacité énergétique dans le bâtiment ou solar water heater, la promotion de solaire thermique, individuel ou collectif, la promotion de solaire photovoltaïque. Les primes varient entre 70% pour l'immatériel et de 10 à 50% pour l'immatériel, selon les différents types d'actions. Le chapitre 3, et ça c'est la nouveauté du FTE à partir de 2017, donne la possibilité d'avoir des crédits bonifiés à travers le fonds de transition énergétique. Donc, des crédits de l'ordre de 100 000 à 200 000 euros pour les projets d'efficacité énergétique, par exemple, comme la cogénération ou les projets d'autoproduction, les projets de solaire thermique collectif, en plus d'une participation au capital de 60% pour ce type de projet. On a essayé de résoudre le problème de bouclage de schéma de financement à travers ce mécanisme de financement. Donc, si on fait la simulation, le client ou le bénéficiaire, il n'a à mettre que quasiment 8% du coût du projet, et les 92 restants seront pris en charge par le crédit FDE, la participation au capital, la subvention, en plus d'un crédit associé, parce qu'on n'a pas accès au crédit du FDE que si on a déjà pris un crédit d'une banque commerciale qui est quasiment de même valeur que le crédit FTE. Donc, le crédit FTE, c'est un crédit bonifié avec 5 ans de grâce sur 2 ans, avec un taux de sortie de 5%, qui est très inférieur au taux de sortie finale du marché en Tunisie. Et en plus de ces deux chapitres, le FTE, le nouveau FTE, il donne la possibilité de financer en totalité ou en partie des programmes d'aspect national selon le chapitre 4 du FTE. Donc, en 2018, le Conseil ministériel a déjà approuvé l'aspect national de 5 programmes d'efficacité énergétique d'énergie renouvelable qui vont être financés à travers le FTE. Je dis programmes nationaux, c'est par exemple les programmes qui sont approuvés, c'est le remplacement de tous les points lumineux de l'éclairage public en Tunisie, 450 000 points lumineux sodium haute pression par des lampes LED. Le programme national d'efficacité énergétique dans les mosquées en Tunisie. Ça va toucher 6 000 mosquées en Tunisie en réalisant une action de relamping au LED, des installations photovoltaïques pour chaque mosquée, en plus d'adopter une climatisation efficace pour chaque mosquée. Le troisième programme national, la réalisation des audits énergétiques dans tous les municipalités tunisiennes, les 350 municipalités en Tunisie, qui va toucher le transport, le bâtiment et tout, et définir des plans d'action. Le quatrième programme national approuvé par le Conseil ministériel de 2018, c'est le programme Prosol ELEC social pour installer pour les familles qui ont des faibles revenus donc, et qui consomment moins de 1200 kWh par an des systèmes photovoltaïques gratuitement. Donc, ça va toucher 800 000 familles en Tunisie, qui va être aussi pris en charge par le FTE, le Fonds de transition énergétique. En plus, il y a le programme de Promo-Isol, le programme de promotion de l'isolation des toitures en Tunisie, avec un objectif d'isoler les toitures de 65 000 logements en Tunisie. Et le programme PromoLED, qui est un programme national, validé par le Conseil ministériel aussi, et qui vise le remplacement de 4 millions de lampes LBC ou incandescence par des lampes LED énergétiquement efficaces. Nous allons commencer ces 5 programmes nationaux par des programmes pilotes en 2022. Donc, qui va viser la ville, toute une ville où on a donné le slogan de ville amie de l'environnement, c'est la ville de Tozeur. Donc, à la ville de Tozeur, on va mettre l'isolation des 10 000 toitures. On va équiper tous les mosquées de la ville de Tozeur, qui sont 150 mosquées par les systèmes photovoltaïques et les lampes LED, ainsi que par une climatisation efficace. On va aussi commencer à réaliser un projet pilote de changement de réfrigérateurs, des anciens réfrigérateurs qui datent de plus que 15 ans par des réfrigérateurs de classe 1. Et ça, on parle du programme Promo Frigo qui vise à remplacer 400 000 réfrigérateurs. Donc, avec cet outil national, et nous avons eu un appui et une complémentarité à travers des lignes de financement internationaux, surtout une aide de la part, une subvention de la part de l'Union européenne de 50 millions d'euros pour appuyer les projets qui sont faits à travers le FTE, en plus d'une ligne de crédit de 73 millions d'euros à travers l'AFD pour financer tous les projets d'efficacité énergétique et énergie renouvelable dans le secteur des hôteliers et les PME. En plus, on va commencer dès ce mois-ci un nouveau projet qui s'appelle Power Tunisie avec un don de 60 millions de dollars à travers l'USAID En plus de plusieurs programmes, et surtout un programme GEF.
Thank you.
Ah,
Shukran, Abdul Qadir. Another 2 minutes.
just 2 words.
Please.
Thank you. سامحوني كان طولت بس I want to share with you the Tunisian experience maybe so just to say 2 words about the project of lighting energy transition financed by the GEF also. So they will assist us to pass to efficient lighting in Tunisia with a project of 2 million euro, which start this year. So, and he will also assist us in the other project of promo-led. Okay, and the Italian cooperation will assist us in the 2 project Promo-Isol and the Promo-Frigo with 2 million euro of project 3PA.
That's great. In fact,
Thank you.
several projects and initiatives, and Tunisia is leading by example. In fact, Tunisia has been the leading Arab country in energy efficiency based on the CREA analysis for several years. And we are proud that you are with us, and we have seen that you are leading by example. So the public buildings are taking a good stock of your programs. Also, the scrapping of old refrigerators is an interesting part that we are addressing also within the meetMED. So would be very keen to discuss more with you how we can build on that for the regional replication in other countries. Inshallah. Thank you very much, Abdul Qadir. It was quite informative and interesting discussion and covering a lot of issues. And now I'd like to move to Dr. Hassan. And Dr. Hassan, thank you very much for continuing with us. You and Dr. Najib, I know that you are we have kept you for a long time. And being from EIB, I'd like to understand your perspective on how IFIs can be in fact, engaged with the national programs and the local banking sectors. What is your perspective in, especially with the focus on energy efficiency solutions? We understand you are experienced a lot in the renewable energy, but we understand also that you have moved in the past few years into energy efficiency. So how IFIs and regional actors can engage also local banks and other national institutions to ensure access to finance? What are the business models that you would consider as the most suitable for the region, and how to build the ecosystem around that? So please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, and I hope you can hear me well. Thank you for this very kind invitation. It's a wonderful event, and I hope that you will take away a lot of useful messages from all the speakers. A lot has already been said today, so I hope I will not repeat some of the messages from earlier speakers, but indeed the place or the role of IFIs is very important in this bigger picture. First of all, to mention that EIB is the largest multilateral development lender in the world, and in terms of energy efficiency, the volume is around 5 to 6 billion euros per year. So this is quite significant, and it's growing. It's going up and down, but it is quite significant. And 2/3 of this is in the building sector. So again, this is to show that we do realize where the challenge is. We are mainly investing or financing European projects, but there are enough programs and funds and initiatives and instruments outside of Europe, including in the MENA region. So the challenges have already been identified by the previous speakers. What I would focus on is, of course, the whole issue of de-risking those investments that are very fragmented, and there is the absolute need for aggregation. So IFIs are fairly large, and we cannot go down to the level of individual small projects, especially when it's buildings related. So there is the need to collaborate, and this is through local banks or other financial intermediaries like funds, for instance. So in that case, and in general, our overall approach is to look at an integrated approach. What it means is, often the buzzword for this is blending different instruments, in addition to the very standard loans that we offer, which by themselves needs to be more attractive with preferential rates and so on. There are other tools that are weaved into the package. Most notably, there is the guarantees, or the real de-risking mechanism is to have a guarantee that is from a certain source. Often it could be the national government, national promotional bank. In, again, the southern neighborhood, this is often the European Union. And there is the technical assistance component. I would stress the importance of technical assistance because, as was said earlier, those local partners need to build their capacity to identify and evaluate energy efficiency projects, to be more confident in how they attribute the risk levels, because usually they are elevated and sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. And then also to be able to follow through with the projects, to basically lower the transaction costs, another issue that was mentioned earlier, and more confidently on lend to their clients. So who are their clients? We already heard it could be public sector, but very often the challenge is with SME sector or individuals, residential buildings. So this is a challenge that no single solution can address. Again, we need integrated approaches where all of these tools, loans, guarantees, and technical assistance can work together. In addition, what national usually programs do is provide incentives. They can be grants and other financial incentives. It could be tax rebates and other instruments like this. So we would like to have all the players, all the stakeholders involved at the outset. Very often we implement European policy as the EIB. Very often there are specific initiatives that are targeted at the southern neighborhood region, MENA region. So the EIB then is really ready to support these initiatives. We don't have that many currently. There is one fund that you may have heard of, Green for Growth, that is an example. It's actually a good example where through a fund, the EIB has taken a quasi-equity share of this fund, specifically to support renewable energy, but also energy efficiency in Northern Africa, the West and South Mediterranean. The example is good because it contains exactly those elements, not just the loan, that it is preferential rates, but then there is a level of guarantee, and there is a lot of training, capacity building for the fund manager, but also for these end clients. And end clients could be, again, very different types of entities. To mention another category that I think is maybe underutilized in your region would be the Esco model, where you have an energy service company, which in itself acts as an aggregator. So this is a route that could deliver a lot of results in this particular case. And generally, the issue is that the market is not operating at its full potential with energy efficiency. There are all the barriers that we mentioned. So the EIB's experience in Europe, which is where we mostly work, other than this example I gave for the MENA region, is exactly that where we provide technical assistance, the leverage of then investments and the reduction in defaults of these projects is not just significant, it's enormous. In terms of leverage, one example is a technical assistance program that some of you may have heard of called ELENA. There, the leverage is usually 1 to 30, which means for every euro of technical assistance, the investment achieved at the end is 30 euros, 30 times more. And we have a similar product like the Green for Growth Fund that I already mentioned in Europe, called Private Finance for Energy Efficiency, where again we work with partner retail banks or funds, where we not only provide some capital, but actually a very significant guarantee element for them to have the confidence that if some projects do not perform, they will not bear all the burden of the losses, and technical assistance to engage and upskill the financial intermediaries themselves, as I said, to be able to evaluate, promote, and then follow through with their projects. So this is in summary. I think if you have questions, that's probably the better way to continue the discussion, but I hope I addressed your question. Thank you.
You give an excellent, in fact, overview of what banks looks for in especially IFIs when they are engaging on the national level, and the concept of aggregation and having different coexistence of different modalities, loans, guarantees, and technical assistance are crucial. And in fact, we fully support this point of view, and in fact, we'd work on all of this and allow us to engage with you later on discussion on how to make them more effective to untap the potential for energy efficiency in the region. Thank you very much. And now we move to Dr. Najib. Dr. Najib, I'd like to switch to Arabic because most of the attendees here in Arabic, or should I continue in English? Maybe I would continue in English because of our guests here, they do not have the mics, okay? Dr. Najib, based on your long experience and being a leader of several important projects, especially ending with those focusing on cities, what regionally coordinated actions you would think most important for the region right now? What are the lessons learned and how we get, in fact, this scaled up into the regional level? And of course, I'd like to reflect on other issues, especially that typically our region is, I mean, the southern Mediterranean side is having such central planning. So when we are engaging in the city level, it is somehow not really captured in the, for example, in the NDCs, in the national action plans, and so on. So I'd like you to reflect on all the aspects because you are the last speaker for today, and I'll have a round of questions to all of you at the end of this session. But I'll misk al-khitam, your good self, Dr. Najib.
So would you like me to proceed in Arabic or in English? It is up to you, Dr. Khalid.
You do not have the mic. I'll go ahead with in English. Thank you very much.
Right. In fact, I will continue what probably my colleague, my project manager, Mrs. Christina Casella started. It's basically the whole projects now is a continuity of meetMED, and meetMED has started in 2018, and we have three major components. One of them is the NDC mainstreaming, and the technical way we do it is to establish in each country either regional or national coordination groups that represent the key agencies of the country, key government agencies, and work with them primarily to decentralize climate action at national level, but not only, and to be partner with them. And through this NDC programming, we prepare with these actors a climate action mainstreaming at national level. Basically, it's a strategy document through which those national authorities agree to take steps to mainstream climate action. So we have this first document. Then in second level, we work with cities. We have been extensively working with cities, preparing the sustainable energy and climate action plans. And we are about, in few weeks, about to produce some for additional 90 cities or 92 cities, and have before that prepared for 30 cities. The way we do it is actually, obviously, it is a huge amount, and the only way to do it and to produce it is to work very closely with the city's technicians to prepare action plans. And at the third level, we are preparing ways, we are thinking of ways to finance them, to finance primarily, of course, those national climate, those local level climate actions who are defined in those plans. And so basically the problematic here is major one is to how to facilitate the non-bankability of cities. And the way we do it in meetMED, the outcome of this is first to prepare very detailed, successful set of 16 or 17 pilot projects that can be taken and replicated, that was already implemented in climate action. When we talk climate action, obviously, primarily this is energy efficiency or sustainable energy action. So we have those pilot projects. We also prepare what we call a guidebook on how to finance climate action on city levels. Basically, we tell countries with the national and regional coordination groups, these are ways that we identify together to facilitate the funding of climate projects and energy projects at cities level. Here we are, take it, and you have the 16 projects who are there. But most interestingly, and that we discovered after years now, we are about to finish this stage of meetMED, is that the cities that has either prepared climate action plan, CAPs already, and are preparing it without finalizing it now, have already gone through a long way in implementing them. What I'm getting at is that a city or a local authority or governorate has a plan that is prepared by them and in most cases approved when the approval is needed by local council. They have a tool that facilitates the funding of all of that. And so from here, we said for the extension part of the meetMED, there's two parts again. One is the C4C, Climate for City projects. The cities that have prepared the CAPs were given the opportunity by an EU special fund to apply to implement them for funds up to 50% of the cost of the actions from 2.5 million to, from 5 million to 7 million. i.e. they got the chance to get a grant from 2.5 to 3.5 million. And now we have 6 cities who are benefiting from these grants up to, projects up to 39 million euros, if I'm not mistaken, exactly the figure. So what I'm getting at the end is we have here tools, and funding and climate finance cannot be successful without plans, and good plans, including, of course, financial schemes that both national authorities and cities can use and say, these can be strategic plans in terms like macro. He has a plan for 20 years to reduce emissions, but also to prepare massive amount of urban climate-related projects. You have the engagement by plan with the national authority. You also have, with all these tools, we are most importantly facilitating the work of the IFIs. Because through the preparation of those pilot projects that I talked about, we extensively worked with national authorities, with national banks and IFIs, trying to find ways, what we call a third-party finance system. Obviously, the IFIs, the national, have that measured, non-suitability of financing very small projects at the city levels, but they can finance large sums through national authorities, through national banks, who can distribute them into the cities to implement those CAPs activity. And this, we believe, we have already examples in every country to formulate this kind of thing. So it's a whole package of planning tools, of examples, of work, facilitation of IFIs and national banks. And finally, in each country, we are creating what we call a CAP support mechanism, which is a national organizational mechanism that would facilitate the preparation of the plan, their implementation, and their financing. Okay. Now, for the coming years, with the extension of the project, we will consolidate all this. All of this will be further consolidated to be very active and very implementable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Najib. quite informative. And in fact, I have taken many notes. But what you remind me with is the statement that if we fail to plan, we plan to fail. And here comes the role of planning that Dr. Najib highlighted and how to engage local actors. And I'd like now to conclude the session with one question to all attendees among the panel here, online and in person. And I start with the online colleagues. I would start, the question is, what are the key messages that you wish to send to the upcoming COP? Let me start with Dr. Asin and then Dr. Najib, and then I'll take the floor here. And may I seize this opportunity to thank you very much for your time with us and being patient all this day. Thank you very much. Dr. Asin, please. The key message.
Well, I have attended many of the COPs, and the process is slow and not always very fruitful. Energy efficiency, however, remains a constant in terms of the scale of the opportunity to contribute to reducing emissions. It should not be underestimated. On the contrary, it should be ever more reinforced. Now, with the energy prices going up for a number of reasons, it makes even more sense to push for energy efficiency. What is adopted in Europe as the energy efficiency first principle that we already heard about needs to probably become a global motto. And I think this is kind of my simple message that I would like to keep it simple. Usually has a bigger impact than going into a lot of elaborate words. Yeah.
The first principle to become global. Do not underestimate any efficiency on the national level. Dr. Najib, in 2 minutes, what is your key messages? What are your key messages? I'm sorry. You are muted, I assume. Dr. Najib, you are muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think that in each of the countries we're working with, the NDC ambassadors, if we can call them, they are doing extraordinary work. I mean, very, very innovative, very spearheading, very difficult climate action work, which includes energy and sustainable energy. The time now, and for COP27, is to mainstream this action, to go and involve as much as possible relevant national actors, government authority agencies, and of course cities, and help them plan climate actions within their mainstream activities themselves. For instance, we would work with a country, a Ministry of Planning or Ministry of Agriculture, and support them to have concrete programs within their programs to mainstream climate actions. This is actually the step we have to go down. The idea has passed, the need is there. Another thing is, let us look at the cities from their capacity to do things, because we seem to have this idea that the city are sitting there waiting for money to be given to them. But no, they did a lot of things within their own budget, within partnership with private sectors, within, of course, other kind of taxation and elevation of funds. Let us look at this and help them to come with more innovative down-to-ground solution for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Najib. So now you have 2 main points: mainstreaming activities on sectoral level as much as we can. And this is sector coupling, of course, or sector integration, and improving cities' capacities to plan and accelerate the uptake of energy efficiency measure. And of course, about part of this is access to finance. May I see this opportunity to thank our, I would say, our speaker, our panelists on the online. And now I'll move to those who are sitting for almost 45 minutes. And I'll start with Roberta and move forward asking the same question. What are the key messages that you wish to send to the COP? And
yeah, okay. I've heard a lot of messages today, and I like very much the integrated approaches loans, guarantees, technical assistance is needed. We need to have multi-level stakeholders dialogue, starting from national policymakers and going to the local, to the action plans that are needed for climate and energy. So that's very important. And from IFIs to go to local banks, to go to commercial banks, to involve them, to have, because in energy efficiency, there are fragmented investments compared to the IFIs. And it's very important. Also, I've heard, and I forgot, the private finance for energy efficiency program in Europe from IFIs to finance local banks. So this is very important, an approach that must be taken here. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. So integrated approach, multilateral stakeholder dialogues and discussions, and engaging local banks. 3 takeaways. Corina, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. About my opinion is a better use on available research, dialogue among stakeholders, also about the financing to shift from good intention to real actions, and concrete results from exemplary demo action, such as those of meetMED 2, to be adapted, replicated, and scaled up in other countries.
Thank you very much. So dialogue and moving to real actions. These are the keywords. Alessandro, you are the expert here. Go ahead.
Well, and also given my role in Work Package 2, I think that synergies with other initiatives, institutions, and local stakeholders, regional stakeholders are essential to strengthen, to mutually reinforce both sides, that is financing, but also the practical actions from all the stakeholders involved, and also to enlarge the network of our project and of our initiatives to multiply the messages and the dissemination of our activities. Also from the financing point of view, synergies are essential, and also dialogue. And again, as suggested by Corinna, dialogue and synergies are essential for this project and for the to meet the targets we know in terms of decarbonization. Thanks.
Thank you, Alessandro. So engaging regional stakeholders to harmonize, to align, to multiply, and to synergize. Thank you very much, Alessandro. And now Abdelkader. يلا مسك الختام في البانل today.
شكرا. My key message is that the audience, please think to develop a sustainable financial instrument adapted to your national context. This is the important, okay? The second message, as said Roberta, is to install a real dialogue between all the key operator, all the operator in the country. The government cannot do everything, or the agency cannot do everything with their own. So we need a real private public partnership with a win-win approach. So and we need to how to say it, on a besoin d'impliquer aussi tout ce qui est société civile et aussi ainsi que la recherche scientifique dans la réflexion et la réalisation des programmes d'efficacité énergétique et d'énergie renouvelable. Et merci.
شكرا عبد القادر. Thank you, Abdelkader. In fact, so sustainable financial instruments that are somehow adapted to the local context, dialogue among key stakeholders, including public, private. I assume also NGO and civil society would be part of this. And finally, the scientific research and innovation and technological development, how this would reflect on the future of our communities and cities and countries on the higher level. In fact, with this, I assume we had heard today several key messages that are of high importance, and would be glad together with our partners and meetMED and the beneficiary countries, we would convey them for sure, summarize them, share them with you, and then convey them to the COP together with other messages that are going to be collected over the coming days. I'll now give the floor, I'm concluding now, and I'm giving the floor to Roberta to end this beautiful day with you. Thank you for being with us all the day, and I look forward to meeting you again in the near future. Roberta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maged. I would just like to conclude wishing that in the next meetMED or in the next meeting before COP27, we'll have some national roundtables in the meetMED project with some countries. We foresee to have 5 national roundtables. It's very important, and I hope that many of our beneficiary countries will have the opportunity to start this dialogue inside the different countries. Thank you very much. Of course, also at regional level, but let's start at national level. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.